This is Big Podcast.
All right. David, coming to you from the coolest place in town, formerly, as of yesterday, the hottest place in town. I'm going to get into that. It's Build a Big Podcast, the marketing podcast for podcasters. If you want to grow your podcast, if you want more listeners, if you want more money for the sponsorships that you are selling, you are in the right place. This is the audio edition of my weekly newsletter that is called Big Podcast Insider. You can find it at newsletter.bigpodcast.com. This is what we're going to cover. Heatwave, a desktop app for podcast listening. What to podcast, 21 unique and useful ideas. What do you do with old podcast equipment? I know what you do. I'm going to have an intervention. Content licensing for podcasters. Also some classified ads, things that will help you to grow your podcast, get more people to your podcast, make money with your podcast, the things that this podcast is about. Build a Big Podcast is brought to you by Riverside.fm, a virtual studio that makes recording and editing at the highest quality possible accessible to anyone. You're going to look and sound your best. That's because Riverside records you and your guests locally, bypassing poor and unstable internet connections, which gets you studio quality audio and video. Let's talk about video. You doing video? Even if you're not doing video, maybe you're recording your video, but you're not releasing it because you're an audio-first podcast. That's cool. I do the same thing. In that case, maybe you want to think about a hybrid, using video for social media clips. Well, Riverside can help you out. They've got a feature called Magic Clips. It takes your long-form video and through the magic of AI, gives you those snackable social media clips, bite-sized chunks that you can distribute via social media with a single click. You're going to want to try this out. You can do it for free. It's riverside.fm. Go there right now. Sign up. You're going to get a free account. They're going to give you a couple of hours to check it out. Look under the hood, kick the tires, see how you like it. If you want to stick around, I've got a discount code for you. It's Big Podcast, BIGPODCAST. That's going to get you 15% off. The free account available for you to check out, riverside.fm, and that discount code to get you 15% off. Big Podcast, BIGPODCAST. All right, let's get to it. I'm going from thing to thing to thing. All of them about podcasting, all of them about growing your audience, all of them about making a better podcast. So sometimes it's not very clear when I switch from thing to thing to thing. And because of that, you're going to hear this sound. If I'm talking about something you're interested in, you want more information about it, you can go to newsletter.bigpodcast.com. This is issue number 188. You'll see more information there in writing. You'll see all the links to everything that I'm talking about. That's at newsletter.bigpodcast.com, issue number 188. You ready to go? Let's do it. Heatwave. So I've been making jokes all summer long about how hot it is to record in a small podcast studio. And it does get hot. Right now I'm in a 5x8 room. I've got all this equipment. I've got me. Sometimes I've got another person. Body heat, baby. It's going to heat up your space very, very quickly. The radio show that I host and produce, Music Business Radio, will have producer, me, engineer, maybe a guest or two, sometimes a publicist, in a room that's not much bigger than the one that I'm in now. And it's got more equipment. So you can imagine the heat that generates. Because within reason, you can't run a big fan, can't run a loud AC. Your focus is on the content, not necessarily climate control. Anyway, back in issue number 186, and you can find this at newsletter.bigpodcast.com, I made a joke about hot recording studios. And last week, I found myself in one, hotter than normal. Air conditioner went out. Now, at first, I thought it was a simple and cheap repair, and this is the lesson that I have for you. Let's assume that it was. Not the thousands of dollars air conditioner that I just had installed. It seemed to be a condenser issue. That happened to me about a year ago, and these things fail all the time, especially in the hot summer months. So I said, it's the condenser. Same symptoms. I made some assumptions, okay? It's a $20 part. But here's the issue. I don't know how to install it, and it's in the attic. I got to get to it. That $20 part can become several $100s, maybe $1,000. Who knows? It's not the part that people are paying for, though. It's a cool house. They want a cool climate, a cool studio. And I bring this up because this relates to your podcasting, and it's important for you to remember. Podcasting may be easy for you, and you probably know how to get a great sound with $100 worth of equipment. An inexpensive USB mic, a walk-in closet, you can make it happen. But it is not that way for most people. So if you are charging for your podcasting services, and this is recording, this is editing, anything, don't assume just because you can do it on the cheap, do it with your skills that you've developed over these years, and it's easy for you. that it is not worth a significant amount of money for other people. Again, it's not the $20 condenser. It's the cool house. They are paying for an outcome. So if you are doing this kind of work for other people, don't sell yourself short. If you want help, I can help you with that. If you want to make money with your podcast or your podcasting talents, I've got something called Big Podcast Amp, the audio monetization program. Let me dive a little bit deeper into this. If you like the newsletter, you like what I talk about on the podcast, you're going to love Big Podcast Amp. Again, it stands for Audio Monetization Program. It's a personal coaching program. You're going to work with me, and I'm going to help you do three things. I'm going to help you grow your podcast audience, get more people talking about your podcast, and make more money with your podcast or your podcasting services. I've got details at bigpodcast.com/amp, bigpodcast.com/AMP. A desktop app for podcast listening. How do you listen to podcasts? I listen on an iPhone. My favorite app is called RSS Radio. I've been using it for years. $2.99 a year. That's the subscription fee. Very inexpensive. I don't know how I found it. I guess I was looking for RSS maybe. People don't even know what RSS is. And I think the name of it, RSS Radio, is one of the reasons that most people, I've only met one in the last 10, 15 years, that knows about this app. I think that's one of the reasons it hasn't taken off. But regardless, a great app lets me take my podcast wherever I go. Gym, car, listening via a phone, a mobile device, is the most effective way for most people to listen to podcasts. But what if you want to listen on a desktop computer? Pocket Cast just released a desktop app for both Windows and Mac. It is worth a look if you are listening at your computer. If you're doing work at your computer, you want to listen to a podcast, it's a great option. I got it linked at newsletter.bigpodcast.com. This is issue number 188. I want to know, how are you listening to your podcast? What do you think about this desktop app? Do reach out. I'm on Mastodon, Blue Sky, or Threads. You can find all the links at newsletter.bigpodcast.com. What to podcast? 21 unique and useful ideas. Twitter isn't what it used to be. Do we still call it Twitter? I do. This is an article that was originally written for Twitter. Fortunately, what we used to do on Twitter can be repurposed and used for your podcast. And a podcast is even better for these things because voice, me talking to you, you talking to your listeners, it's so much more personal than a 280-character text message. I love this list. It's easy to follow. There's some solid, easy to record ideas that are going to make great episodes for you, especially if you've got a how-to or business-related podcast. I've got the full list at newsletter.bigpodcast.com. I'm going to go through 5 of them real quick. Listen to how easy this is. 1, a tip that saves people time, effort, or money. I'll give you an example with this podcast. I've been talking about recording in a closet. Now I've got this tricked out closet, lighting, electricity, padding, sound panels. A lot of people don't have that though. It's more of an investment than they want. Maybe you've got a closet full of clothes. And that's the trick. If you are in a situation, if you've got a guest who is in a situation where they're in a boomy room, it's loud, it's echoey, there's a lot of glass, a lot of hard surfaces. And I do this all the time. I do this all the time with people that you wouldn't think would be up for it. This radio show that I'm talking about, a lot of celebrities on there, a lot of well-known musicians. And sometimes I'm getting reverb reflections. And I'll say, hey, do you have a closet in your house with clothes, a walk-in closet? They'll say, yeah. Would you mind moving your laptop and your mic to that closet? We're going to get a much better sound. That's it. That's the tip. Now, as a podcaster, you realize how easy that is, walking into a closet. What about the results, though? It's like that $20 condenser giving you a cool house. The results are huge. That's the kind of thing that you want to bring to your listeners. Something that's easy to do, and yeah, it sounds simple, but it's going to get you big results. So 1, a tip that saves people time, effort, or money. 2, share a failure. Oh boy, I don't have enough time to go into failures. I'll give you a quick one, and I would go deeper into this if I were to do a full episode about this. One of the things that podcasters find if you do enough episodes is that you will be recording an episode and you think you're using one mic and you're speaking into that mic, but maybe a laptop mic or a built-in webcam mic is picking you up. And I got a brand new mic. I was very excited about it. New mic from Audio-Technica. I said, man, these waveforms are really hot. I hadn't played it back. Realized I was coming in through the built-in laptop mic. Now, fortunately, I didn't record an interview that way. Your guests aren't always going to catch those things. You and I would, because we've got those trained ears. That's what I was talking about, moving people over to a closet. Your guests, they're not going to know. They're used to Zoom calls. They think you sound great. You're going to know the difference. Quick failure. Then what I would do is say, verify that you were using the correct mic, tap on it, always test it before you record an important interview. Number 3, share a fear. Again, not enough time to go deep into these. I'm looking down at this backup recorder that I've got, a Zoom F3, which is great. One SD card has something like 88 hours of backup on it. So one SD card is going to last me quite a long time. Fear of losing an interview? Yeah, we've all been there. And we've all lost an interview if you've done enough of them. Back it up with a backup recorder. Problem solved. Number 4, share work in progress. Well, I do this all the time. How I do it now, I'm talking about the new book that I've got. I'm actually going to mention this in the next episode. So if you're interested in this, make sure you subscribe, bigpodcast.com/subscribe. But I'm looking for examples of podcasters to put in that book. That's the work in progress. I'm working on a new book. I'm looking for examples of podcasters, that's you, to be part of that book. But you could do it any way you want to. You can maybe give a rough draft if you've got a book. You could give maybe, I don't know, a snippet of a new podcast. A work in progress is great. People love the behind the scenes. We call them work tapes. They love the story. They love to be involved in the creation. If you're looking for feedback, because they feel that they're part of it, and then they're more engaged in the product once it comes out. So number 4, share work in progress. Number 5, tell a revealing story. I just heard a podcast that has a great intro on it. This is a friend of mine named Alon Fong, and he has a podcast called Behind the Curtain. It's about the adult nightclub industry. You might call it a strip club. And what he does is he adds humanity to that industry. It's not just a nameless, faceless dancer named Kiki or Pandora or Mercedes or Cavassier. He's showing that these are real people and they're using stage names, and it's actually really hard work. And he had this interview with a dancer who had used the money she had made as a dancer to become a nurse. She was dancing when she was young. It was a means to an end, and she used it to do something more long-term. He's giving an intro about how he knew her. He was a DJ in the club. That's how they met. He's telling about her, but he's also talking about his experience getting out of that business. And it was very honest. He said, when I got out of this business, it was very tough for me. You're making all this money and you get out of the business and you're finding jobs that maybe don't pay as much, or they don't want to touch you because you were in the adult nightclub business. A very honest perspective about where he was, where he had been, and the work that he had been doing. That's a revealing story. And that brings people to you. They say, oh man, I've had those tough times. You don't have to be flawless as a host. We are not doing broadcast radio. We do not have these shows that go out across the country, not in the same way anyway, where we're trying to reach a lot of people, don't go deep. No. What people want from us is they want reality. And not reality like reality television. That's fake too. But reality in that something they can relate to, something that they know they're not the only one when they go through it. That's a revealing story. So these examples: 1, a tip that saves people time, effort, or money. 2, share a failure. 3, share a fear. 4, share a work in progress. And 5, tell a revealing story. It sounds simple. It is simple. But listeners consider you a friend and sharing little things about yourself, what you're working on, what you're going through. That's going to go a long way to deepening your relationship with them. I encourage you to try it. There are 21 in the full list. I have them linked at newsletter.bigpodcast.com. This is issue number 188. What do you do with your old podcast equipment? Like I said in the intro, I already know. Here's the deal. A lot of podcasters, they start with a $50 mic, a USB mic. Great. That gets you in the game. But then you want to upgrade to something a little bit different. Maybe an RE20, professional mic. But you keep the old stuff, right? Or do you? Do you sell it? And when do you sell it? And when you sell it, do you try to get a certain percentage of your money back? $100 mic, get $50 for it. $200 mic, $100 for it. That's kind of the going rate for used equipment. Reverb.com, also musician's friend. Great options if you want to sell used equipment. eBay can be a great option if you want to sell used equipment. By the way, if you go to newsletter.bigpodcast.com, I've got a joke about this, but it's visual. You're going to have to see it. So go to newsletter.bigpodcast.com, issue number 188. And do let me know while you are there. I've got my links to Mastodon, Blue Sky, or Threads. Reach out to me via one of those services and let me know, what are you doing with your old equipment? How much old equipment do you have? Maybe you got something that I need. Let me know about that too. The links to the joke, the links to reach out to me, newsletter.bigpodcast.com. This is issue number 188. Content licensing for podcasters. There is big money in content and brand licensing. And as a podcaster, you've got both of these things. You've got a great opportunity here. If you're considering going in this direction, you're curious about it, I've got some things for you to think about. It's linked at newsletter.bigpodcast.com, issue number 188. 1, the elements of an agreement. 2, the benefits of a licensing program, having this in place, the challenges of a licensing program, what you need to think about beforehand. I've got a buddy of mine licensed some stuff and didn't have an end date to it. The stuff he licensed went out everywhere and it got abused and it lost value because of that. You need to think about this. Yes, you can make money, but if it gets out to everybody and everybody has a license, that license is not as valuable if it were only you that controlled it or just a few people. Also, what ways might licensed content be used? You might be thinking, I got a small podcast, got a small brand name, a voice that nobody really recognized. Well, you might be able to do better than you realize. Even if you're not currently considering licensing your stuff, I suggest you review this information because you never know what can happen when somebody sees or hears what you were doing and comes to you. I did this movie with Steve Martin. Seriously. It's called It's Complicated. It's not me exactly, but it's an audiobook I produced. And if you watch this movie, it's got Meryl Streep, Alec Baldwin. There's a scene, Steve Martin's driving in a car. He's a divorced guy. He's listening to an audiobook about being divorced. He's going to Meryl Streep's house. He's in his car on her road. He sees her walking on the side of the road, offers her a ride. She gets in the car. That tape is playing. So now she knows that he is divorced. Pivotal scene, arguably the funniest in the movie. I'm biased. But anyway, that's me. And that was a licensing deal. So you may not think when you record something, a podcast or otherwise, that it has legs. It may have legs. I've got all these things you need to think about linked at newsletter.bigpodcast.com. This is issue number 188. Classified ads for you. These are things that will help you to grow your podcast, get more people to your podcast, make more money from the sponsors that you have on your podcast. Podpage. Over 25,000 podcasters have used it to create a beautiful listener-friendly podcast site via an RSS feed. Every podcast has an RSS feed. Make use of it. Put it into Podpage. Automatically get one of these sites. It's the simplest way to create a podcast website. You can try it for free. I've it linked at newsletter.bigpodcast.com. Cast Magic automated episode notes. Over 35,000 podcasters have used Cast Magic to automate episode notes, highlight clips, podcast summaries, blog posts, social media posts, and newsletters. You upload your podcast audio to Cast Magic, and it does the rest. It is absolutely amazing. You can try it for free. I've got it linked at newsletter.bigpodcast.com. Hey, I talked earlier about Big Podcast AMP. If you want to work with me, that is the best way to do it. I love working with independent podcasters, and the audio monetization program, that's what AMP stands for, gets you personalized coaching to help you grow your podcast audience, build your authority, brand, and reputation. I'm easy to work with, and I will customize something for you to get more money, get more listeners, have more impact. If you want to find out about it, that's at bigpodcast.com/amp. If you're not quite ready to invest, I've also got some free stuff for you, including Big Podcast Extra, short emails to help you build an audience, attract clients, and make money via podcasting. And the Podcast Grow Toolkit, I call it the Swiss Army knife of podcasting, templates, release forms, other things you want to have in order that will help you make your podcast a success, especially when it blows up. You got to think about this stuff now before your podcast gets big. Don't think, no, I'm going to put this off. Don't do it. Get the Podcast Grow Toolkit now. It will not only help you get more listeners, but it'll help you work with those listeners when you get them. Everything is available at bigpodcast.com. While you are there, I want you to subscribe to this podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode. I've got 3 buttons for you, one for iPhone, one for Android. One is the RSS feed. There it strikes again. I'm going to give it to you directly. You can find this at bigpodcast.com/subscribe. Hit the button, get subscribed, never miss an episode, and I'll see you on the next one of Build a Big Podcast.